Becca Cohen, and welcome to the Student Voice. The purpose of the show is to give students the opportunity to speak to professionals in our community. Today, I'm pleased to introduce the Superintendent of Wayne Schools, Dr. Toback.
Hi, Becca. It's very nice to be here.
It's nice to see you. How are you doing?
I'm okay.
So I want to talk about a few different topics today, but the first thing I want to touch on is student lunches and a couple problems surrounding that.
Right.
So here's Frankie with our first question.
Hello, my name is Frankie Pislacing Inciardi. Students have complained that the quality and nutrition value of school lunches is not the best. Do you agree with this?
Do you agree that the school serves proper lunches for high school students, or that they're a little not have the proper traditional value?
Okay. So I would say that all of the lunches that are served in our school district meet all the federal nutritional requirements. Okay? And so there's a lot that goes into planning the school lunch. Mm-hmm. After talking to some of the people that work for our food service company, they've said that they noticed there's obviously some differences because lunches are grab and go because of the pandemic. So some of the options that students had in prior years was not really, they don't have those options anymore. Mm-hmm. Some of the temperatures that the food is served at is not, it's not what it was. And so I think they do lose some of the freshness that is normally available. So it is something that certainly we could look at. I don't mind coming by and having a lunch to see what it is that the students are concerned about and to talk to students a little bit more about some of the issues that they may have with school lunch. Mm-hmm. We have opened a discussion with the food service company about some of the concerns that have been expressed, and we're happy to continue to have that discussion.
I know for me, I used to eat lunches in middle school, and they were never, I thought they were fine, but here are some examples of the lunches now.
Okay.
I just think that, personally, I know, for me, I have to eat a certain amount of food a day, and if a lunch is supposed to fit a certain requirement, this wouldn't be enough food.
Yeah, it does seem like that is a fairly minimal amount of food. I understand.
So do you think that these are nutritional enough to, fill a teenager for lunch, or?
Well, what I would say is that I would want to know more about that particular. I would want to know the nutritional value of each menu item. So, the fact is that whenever something is put together for a school lunch or any lunch, the nutritional value is something that we need to look at. Okay? Mm-hmm. So it's hard to say from a photo.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Here's Noah with our next question.
Hi, I'm Noah Sandler. Would it be possible for school to have a later start time? Why or why not?
So I know we were talking about this earlier, but in the U.S., the average school start time is 8:04, while ours is 46 minutes earlier than that, which is probably a big amount of time, I think. So do you think that school doesn't allow for enough sleep, or that there's opportunity to change the schedule of the school?
Okay. So based on all the research out there, I agree 100% that it is very difficult and not ideal for high school students to wake up and start the day at 7:20. Mm-hmm. This is a topic that the district undertook probably about 5 to 7 years ago when all of you were in middle school. So at that time, there was a community-wide discussion that took place. There was in-person discussions. There was a thought exchange that we ran to basically learn a little bit more about what people were thinking. And in the end, the community, for the most part, responded that they felt that the start time should remain the same because there is not only the high school, but in Wayne you have middle schools, you have elementary schools, so there's a lot of people that are tied up in any kind of decision about changing start times. But I do agree it is difficult. It is something that we can certainly continue to look at. Even when we came up with the new block schedule, there was an opportunity to perhaps make the start time a little bit later. Mm-hmm. But when you add together all the other constraints that are out there, that sort of led us to continue with the same start time. The other issue is athletics. Mm-hmm. So both of our high schools in Wayne have a very strong tradition of athletics, and ultimately in New Jersey, the start time for almost all high school sports is 4:00 in the afternoon. So when you get out at 2:20 and you have to get your things, get on a bus, and go to where you're going, you also want to have a good amount of time so you can get warmed up and do what you need to do before a game starts. So that was another issue that I remember from when this was evaluated previously. The other issue that kind of is important to consider is, like I said, with the middle schools and the elementary schools, it's a situation where we have a certain number of buses. And so how do you distribute those buses? One of the things is you could probably make some change, but you would have to buy an awful lot of buses. So that basically what we're talking about is having the high school start time be the same as the middle school, which means we would have to have a lot more buses to transport high school students and middle school students at the same time, and a lot of drivers. The other problem, quite honestly, now is that there's a real shortage of bus drivers.
Yeah.
And so the bottom line is that we are always doing everything we can to hire bus drivers, but there's just not many out there. So it would be very difficult to do that. But it doesn't mean we don't keep trying. And certainly the other part about it is you have to balance out everything that we are doing with the health and wellness of the students. And so I know that's an important consideration as well. And I understand the position of the students. It's a very early start to the school day.
So you don't think it'd be possible to like change the scheduling of sports at all? Because I know for me, if like my sport was moved back an hour or two, it wouldn't affect me. And I think getting that extra hour of sleep, I know would help a lot.
Would be a big help.
Yeah.
So I think that we said we live within a conference. In other words, athletically, we're within a conference. We're within leagues. And so the bottom line is that if it's one district that tries to do that, that would be very difficult to do. However, if it's a step forward that all schools were to make, so everybody agreed that this would be the start time, if there was a collective effort to do that, then that's something that could work.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Toback. After this short break, we will be joined by Riya Kachroo.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back. My name is Riya Kachroo, and I'm going to be continuing our discussion with Dr. Toback. To start off, COVID-19 has had a major impact on the school, students, and the teachers. We've all had to make major adjustments and are going through this 2021 to 2022 school year in a non-traditional setting. With the significant changes we've had to make, students are left wondering what the future looks like. First up is mask, and here's Ava with a question for you.
Hi. My name is Ava Pereira, and I have 2 questions for you. So the first one is, are we going to be able to be maskless by the end of the school year? And second of all, are vaccines going to be mandatory?
So masks have been something that people have been talking about a lot in school, and we were just wondering what the future looks like for us.
Okay. So it's very hard to say. The bottom line is in Pennsylvania, the mask mandate for students in school is going to be lifted in January. In New Jersey, the mask mandate is something that comes from the governor. So he issues executive orders. So it's not a decision that's made at the local level. But in the meantime, in January, his executive order will be expiring. So Governor Murphy's executive order expires for the masks in January. Ultimately, a determination will have to be made. And but like I said, it's not something that we can make a decision about locally. We don't have the authority to do that. So it's an unfortunate thing, and I know that ideally, everyone would be able to go about their business without a mask, and that would be a very nice thing.
Do you think like vaccines will have an effect on that if you're vaccinated?
Sure.
Like you won't have to wear a mask, or?
It's really, it is hard to say.
Yeah.
I do know that at least in the case of quarantine at this point, I know a number of students have benefited from, they wind up being a close contact, but because of vaccines, they haven't had to quarantine, so we don't have the number of students that have to quarantine like we did previously. So there is some benefit to that, but whether or not it extends to a situation where you don't have to wear a mask, that's another story.
So if you get COVID in school, do you not have to quarantine if you're vaccinated?
If you have symptoms or if you have COVID, then you do have to quarantine.
So vaccinated or not, you have to quarantine? If
you have the symptoms, if you actually have it. But if you don't have COVID and you basically wind up being a close contact, I know many students, it was very, very difficult for everyone last year, but especially for students who wound up out of nowhere, they wind up out of school for a good amount of time because they were exposed to somebody who did have COVID.
Yeah.
So now, with a vaccine, there's a lot of students that don't have to quarantine, where if it was last year, they would have to quarantine.
Okay.
So it's very helpful.
So on to our next topic, it's junior formal. And junior formal and prom are 2 of the most exciting and 2 of the biggest events of the year.
Sure.
And as the dates get closer and people get more excited, students are starting to ask questions regarding how the events will work. Next up, this is Carlo with another question for you.
Hello, I'm Carlo Pistolesi Inciardi.
What are the plans for major events such as junior formal and prom? What are the measures being taken?
Okay.
So I know with junior formal and prom, obviously there are a lot of people in one enclosed area. And again, students were just wondering how is that going to be handled because COVID-19 is obviously such a big thing right now.
Right. And the unfortunate part is that it's not going to probably go away anytime soon. So we do have to go ahead. And I think that ultimately the school district is going to do what we did last year, which is we meet the challenge. In other words, we plan, we do everything just like we have planned, and whatever rules are in place at the time, we'll follow those rules. But we're going to have these events. All this is going to go ahead. How exactly it looks like, the thing is that in a pandemic, I think what we've all learned is that what seems like things change rapidly, I guess, is the main point. Is that, like something that you say, well, a month from now, maybe things will be different, and then they're not, or they're really a lot different than what people expected. So I think people learned throughout the pandemic that things change so rapidly, it's hard to make a call about what safety precautions will be in place at the time.
And in earlier years, I know a lot of students will bring dates or friends from other schools. Is that still going to be allowed this year, or will there be restrictions on that?
I think we're going to make every effort to allow people from other communities to attend our events. And then, but if there's a requirement, or ultimately it's something that would maybe impact the health and safety of our students, or it's a risk, then we wouldn't. But for the most part, I mean, like I said, every effort will be made to return to normal and to allow students to bring dates from other schools.
I mean, I think it's great that we even get to have these events. So, okay, so for the next question, for the last school year, students were for the most part virtual because we've adapted to online learning and the teachers have as well. Questions regarding virtual learning are being asked. Here's Max with another COVID-19 related question for you.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Brown, and my question is, if we have a snow day, will our classes be virtual, and in what cases will we be virtual?
I'm sorry, Mr. Toback, that was actually Vanessa asking this question. So what would happen in the situation that there's a snow day?
Okay. So in the event of a snow day, right now, again, there's the school district operates based on state laws, right? So right now, if there was a crisis that took place where, say you had a blizzard where the school was shut down for a week, once you have 3 days of school where you're closed for whatever reason, let's say it's a blizzard or whatever, then you can deliver virtual instruction. So that does count. Otherwise, you could have virtual instruction. Other districts have tried to do this and have done so successfully, but ultimately the state has not counted those days as school days. And so it's kind of, you could do it, and we know we have the capability of doing it, but it doesn't count for a day of school. Okay. So ultimately, I think that overall, there's a premium that's placed on in-person instruction. So the idea is that we have 180 days of school in person. You do have some snow days built in. And so, but the overall intent is to provide as much in-person instruction as possible, which it depends, in some cases for convenience, it is nice to be able to go virtual for a day, and we were able to do that, and we did that pretty well. But as far as like your run-of-the-mill type of situation, like not a public health emergency, but say there's a power outage or something like that, unless it's a long-term thing, we're not able to do that because it would not, the state would say Wayne schools weren't in session for 180 days.
So those 3 snow days will still be there. Like we'll still have those snow days off with no virtual learning. It's just in the case that it like goes over.
Yeah, and then you get to come back for in-person learning on another day.
Oh, okay. COVID-19 has had a major impact on everyone these past 2 years. Now that we have more insight on the COVID-19 situation, Abby has one more question for you.
Hi, I'm Abby Cohen, and my question for you is, do you believe students should get more of a voice in the district?
And I think that this question, even like specifically like more of a voice in regards to the entire COVID-19 situation as well. Okay. So kind of like in the district, but also in regards to like what's happening with COVID-19.
Okay. So as far as the district is concerned, I know Mrs. Reichman, the assistant superintendent, and I are looking to establish student advisory councils at each of the high schools. So I think that'll be a way to hear directly from the students about issues and concerns that you have, whether it's COVID-19 or anything else. But we do hear directly from the principals of the building. So Mr. Ruick, Mr. Palzewski, the principals of the high schools, and all the other principals, they certainly share the position of students, and they do let us know what's on the minds of students. We also do, when we do have community questions that we ask, so we do these thought exchange events, right? And so what happens in those events is that every high school student typically is a part of that process. So whenever there is a big question that exists in the community, the students are involved, and the students do have the opportunity to participate and share their opinions.
And I think, like how you mentioned earlier, having those like boards of students like directly from the high schools, I think that's a really good idea. Because I know like our principals do communicate back to you guys, but I think directly hearing it from students themselves will definitely help make a difference. So I think that's really great. So thank you so much, Dr. Toback. After this break, John Segreto has a few more questions for you.
Hi, my name is John Segreto, and welcome back. To finish off, some students have some questions about school in general. Here's Manuela with the first question.
Hi, I'm Manuela Gonzalez, and my question for you is, does Wayne schools prioritize sports over the health and education of children?
So basically, some parents in this town and some students and some teachers think that, you know, part of the reason why we have like an earlier start time is because of sports, and some people, because of that, think that our schools prioritize sports over the health and education of our students, and I just want to know what you think about that.
So I think that the start time that exists right now for both of our high schools has existed for decades. It's been a very long time since Wayne has had that as the start time. So I don't think it necessarily reflects anything current, because in the end, like I said, it has existed that way for a long time. I do think that I don't think there's any question that in Wayne, the athletic programs are strong, and there's a very the community is proud of the athletic tradition that we have here in Wayne. But the question is, does that detract from the academic programs? I mean, I know here at Wayne Hills, the average SAT score is about 1,200. I know that you do exceptionally well in AP testing, and I know that the Wayne, both of our high schools in Wayne, are really they're ranked very highly academically. So while I do think there is a tradition in sports, and I do think that ultimately sports are very important in the community, I think there's a good balance that's achieved here. And I think that what we have here for the students that are involved in the athletic programs is you have true scholar athletes, students who do well athletically, but also do very well in the classroom. I know that when you look at the GPA of the students in our athletic programs, typically the GPA of those students is very high. I know that our soccer team that just won a state title at Wayne Valley, the girls soccer team, and their average GPA on that team is almost it's like 3.8 is I think their average GPA. So you can do both well, and so I think that a strong athletic program can actually enhance the academic program. I think it's really, like I said, an important part of the community, but I don't think that one suffers because of the other.
I guess it's because of like not only school too, like our health too. You know, getting enough sleep in the long term too, because you know we're growing kids, so you know we obviously need like all the sleep we can get. So like obviously like there's other issues besides like getting good grades too as well. You know, like our overall mental health as well. So
I understand.
All right. Now we have Dylan with the second question.
Hi, my name is Dylan Mosqueda, and my question is, do you think the classes that students are required to take will actually prepare them for the real world?
So this is like a huge topic that a lot of students around me talk about. Like, you know, I don't know if you ever heard, but students are like, oh, why do I have to take this class? Do I need it? Is it necessary? It's a topic that I think all students in like every school want to talk about.
Right.
Like certain courses, like, you know, certain science courses, certain math courses. So I'm wondering like how you feel about that. Like some students think that like, why do we need to take certain courses?
Okay. So, so the worst possible answer, which is what I'm going to give you, is because a lot of these classes are required, right? Okay, so that is the bottom line, is that the classes are required. However, like I said, that's the worst possible answer. I think the idea is that every one of those classes has value, and every one of the classes that you take are important for your future. The bottom line is if you continue on at a college or university and you move ahead, and you know it's hard to say what you're going to do for a living. it's hard to say what you're going to study in college because in the end, a vast majority of students actually change their major. So it's really hard to say. But do I think that every class that you take is valuable? In my mind, absolutely. In the minds of your teachers, absolutely. The other thing that I think the Wayne schools excel at is we have so many electives, so many different things that are available to students to study things that they want to study that maybe they feel there's more relevance for what they're doing. And we also have done an awful lot to expand opportunities for students to have work placements. So our work-based learning program is really, like I said, it is growing exponentially. Our partnerships with universities continues to grow. So you can also take college classes if there's something that you want to take at the college level now. Well, particularly if you're a senior, right? If you're a senior, you can take a college class. You just have to work with your guidance counselor. So I think there's a combination of things. Obviously, you're working towards your future. You have the ability to direct your classes. You could select the schedule that works best for you. But there are a lot of classes out there. There's no question in my mind that every math class you take, every science class you
Sorry about that, Dr. Toback. The last bell just rang, but if you'd like, you can finish your thought.
Okay. So I pretty much was finished. So I guess at this point, just to say that the classes that we do offer, I think are very relevant, and mainly because the teachers have some passion for what they teach. So like, there's no doubt they connect why you're learning in your classes. So I believe that's absolutely the case, and I think that in the end, there is no way of knowing exactly what classes will come into play in your future.
All right. Hope that sums it up for some students. Now we have Josh with the last and final question.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Josh. My question is, why are the business classes required freshman year when the seniors are the ones that really need it?
And this is like the last final big issue. I remember in my freshman year business class with Ms. Garrihy, we always talked about like why as freshmen we're taking like either we have an option between financial lit or principles of business, but we didn't understand why freshmen like 14 and 50-year-olds had to take the class when like in 3 years we'd forget everything we just learned. So what the question is we're wondering why like it's not a required class senior year, because us seniors would actually like take advantage of it because we're going into college and then we're eventually going to be out in there in the real world.
So financial literacy classes came into play a number of years ago, and schools had to make decisions because it was required. You know, the whole idea of having a required class and how you fit that in. So in some cases, some schools probably fit that in to the senior year. Other schools, because it's a requirement and you don't want to be in a situation where students are scrambling to meet an additional requirement in their senior year. So in the end, here in Wayne, the determination was to add that to the freshman year. Can that be moved? Is there a reason to move it? It sounds like you have a reason to do that. So I would be happy to discuss that with the guidance department and to see how that might work out if it was available to seniors.
I'm glad, because I know some teachers were thinking not to because some seniors, it's senior year and they get like senioritis and they don't want to do any work. But I feel like if we really showed seniors that, this is the real world, this is what we need to do and what we need to be prepared for, I think more people will like take it seriously.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it would be a good thing to try to push it even the later years, even maybe junior year or anything. I just feel like freshman year is just, such a, we're all like 14 and 15-year-olds.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's like a tough class for a 14-year-old to know and learn about.
So if there's anything that we could do to make a class more relevant, there's different ways to do that, and certainly offering it at a time when students are thinking more about a subject. So financial literacy is, you are 100% right about that. It's an important thing, especially as you get towards the end of your high school experience, you start thinking more about those issues. So yeah, that's certainly something we can discuss. Thank you for calling that to our attention.
No problem. All right, and that wraps up the Student Voice with Dr. Toback. We want to thank you once again for coming onto our show, and we hope to see you again in the future. On behalf of everyone here in TV3 and 4, we would like to wish everyone a happy and safe holiday break.
Thank you.